Hello everyone, and welcome to your Advective weather update for April 26th, 2023. Let's jump right into it. We have quite the weather setup that's already ongoing today, with moisture stretching all the way from Colorado to off the East Coast. Our primary threat that we're going to talk about throughout this video today is the potential for severe thunderstorms in Texas and Florida. We'll be going over the next 3 days of severe weather. We'll also be going over the flooding threats and the fire weather threats with this as well. Let's take a look at the next 3 days here in a broader view. You'll notice today we have those risks of severe storms in both Texas and Florida, and that flooding risk through Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. Tomorrow we have a severe weather and flooding risk along the Gulf Coast, and then finally we have a new severe weather risk that's going to be in place here in Texas again, with a new system heading into Friday with critical fire weather conditions in Arizona and New Mexico as well. Let's jump into the severe weather threat today. You'll notice we have an enhanced risk of severe thunderstorms in Texas and Florida. Tomorrow we have a slight risk of severe storms along the Gulf Coast, and then we have a marginal risk of severe thunderstorms in the northern plains as well as a slight risk of severe storms in Texas and a marginal risk of severe storms in the southeast on Friday. But the maximum risk for severe thunderstorms throughout the 3 days is that level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk. Let's talk about today in a bit more detail. The first round of severe weather will likely begin around 1 p.m. today in the state of Texas, with the most substantial threat for Dallas-Fort Worth being around 4 to 7 p.m. The severe weather risk will then diminish substantially by midnight across the Texas region, with large to giant hail being likely with initial thunderstorms, and as these storms merge, there'll be a strong wind gust threat that'll kind of occur as we get into the Dallas-Fort Worth metro. Should also be noted there on the northern side of that enhanced risk, a strong tornado or two is possible. We'll talk about Florida later in the video. We have a 10% hatched region there for tornadoes. Anywhere in that yellow region is where there is a decent risk for stronger tornadoes today. If you're in that yellow region, that means that numerous tornadoes are possible. If you're in the brown region, that means that scattered to isolated tornadoes are possible. And if you're in the green region, that means that a tornado or two is a possibility. As we get into the hail outlook, you'll notice there that red region in the state of Texas, again, we'll talk about Florida later, anywhere in that black hatched region could get 2-inch in diameter or larger hail. If you're in the red region there, that includes Dallas-Fort Worth. That's where numerous storms with large hail are expected. Scattered storms with large hail are expected in the yellow area, with isolated severe thunderstorms expected in the brown. When it comes to strong winds there, again, we have that hatched region where hurricane force winds are possible, and then around that in the red, we have the enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5, where numerous storms with strong winds are likely, scattered storms with strong winds possible in the yellow region, and isolated storms with strong winds in the brown. Let's talk about this model now. You'll notice here rather clearly that we do have storms picking up rather rapidly as we head into the evening and overnight hours, and you can see that there rather clearly before this bows out into a line of thunderstorms well overnight, and that becomes a bigger concern tomorrow morning, and we'll talk about tomorrow's threat here soon. As we get into the official forecast here now for Florida, we're going to have widespread severe thunderstorms really starting around 5 p.m., although a severe thunderstorm watch is likely to come out here any minute now as we speak. These storms will die down by 10 p.m., and storms will primarily have a threat for large to very large hail, with 2 to 3 inch diameter hail being possible in the most potent storms. Damaging wind gusts are also going to be a possibility with this, and maybe a tornado or two. Should be noted, this is the first time ever in the history of the Storm Prediction Center that they've issued an enhanced risk in the state of Florida for large to giant hail. Here it is in a bit more detail now. You'll notice there again, large to giant hail possible, if not likely there, within the red region, with scattered severe thunderstorms with large to giant hail in the yellow, and isolated severe thunderstorms with hail in the brown. You'll notice there as well, we have that slight risk of strong winds. That includes Gainesville, Orlando, and Lake Okeechobee. And then we have that marginal risk surrounding that. Again, that's scattered and marginal coverage respectively. And finally, our tornado threat, maybe 1 or 2 tornadoes throughout the entirety of this risk region. So very small risk for tornadoes, but that most certainly is non-zero, nowhere near as big as it is in the state of Texas. As we get into the weather radar here, you'll notice here this is around 3, 4, 5 p.m. That you'll notice these storms really get going, and you'll notice there that these storms then slowly begin to die down with time as we head into the evening and overnight hours. Let's take a look at tomorrow's threat now. Severe thunderstorms will likely be ongoing at the beginning of the forecast period, especially on the western side of things. The severe threat will likely end by 4 p.m., with damaging wind gusts being the primary threat. Isolated large hail and tornadoes are also possible. When it comes to the tornado risk, no tornado risk there in the northern plains, but there is a tornado risk, a small one, stretching from Little Rock to Memphis, where a tornado or two could occur within that region. Scattered tornadoes possible from New Orleans to Mobile, with isolated tornadoes possible in the green region there from Montgomery, Tallahassee, Jacksonville. As we get into the forecast for strong winds there, you'll notice there southern Texas, the possibility of strong winds being scattered in coverage. Places like New Orleans, Louisiana, Mobile, Alabama, Pensacola, Florida within the slight risk as well for scattered strong wind gusts. Anywhere in the Brown region there, that includes Memphis, Tennessee, Little Rock, Arkansas, Birmingham, Alabama, stretching north into parts of Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska, South Dakota, you have isolated storms with strong wind gusts possible. And finally, when it comes to hail, no threat of that in the northern plains, although again a marginal risk for large hail. They're stretching from Little Rock to Memphis, so scattered storms with large hail, isolated storms. And then large to very large hail being possible around Brownsville and Corpus Christi, Texas, with the remainder of the risk region having isolated thunderstorms that could produce large hail. As we get into weather models here, you can see rather clearly this storm as it moves through. We don't include Texas because the previous outlook before this one that we just updated didn't really show much of a threat in Texas, but strong storms moving through Texas all the way until around 3-4 p.m. But you'll notice here by the time we get to 6-7 p.m., most of our risk region out of a severe threat. However, Florida still needs to be worrying about the possibility of isolated severe thunderstorms with strong winds and large hail. As we get into the day 3 forecast here, you'll notice that we're going to have storms initiating in Texas in the mid-afternoon with large to giant 3-inch in diameter or greater hail being possible. Damaging winds are also going to be a hazard with this, and maybe even a tornado or two. Storms will end in the overnight hours there. Storms in the southeast will also become severe in isolated pockets with all hazards possible throughout the day. As we get into the official forecast here, you'll notice there that the hatched region, that's where large to very large, maybe even giant hail is possible. Around that, that's scattered coverage there on the yellow for severe thunderstorms with all hazards possible. And then San Angelo, Dallas, Corpus Christi in a marginal risk for isolated severe thunderstorms. Same thing all the way from Norfolk, Virginia to Miami, Florida. Let's talk about this. This is a lower resolution weather model, but you'll notice there we have our system moving through the southeast on Friday as we head into the afternoon hours, and then storms also firing in the state of Texas as we head towards the evening. So the evening is going to be when our primary concern for severe weather is in Texas. The afternoon is going to be when our primary concern is for severe weather in the southeast. Well, what can you do in the storm planning sense if you are on the day of? So if you're in Dallas-Fort Worth, for example, make sure that you have your communication plan in place. You know how to evacuate or get to your safety place and have multiple ways to get weather alerts. If you are in the risk for tomorrow's severe weather event, make sure that you're adjusting your plans, making sure you have multiple ways to get weather alerts, and making sure that your shelter is accessible. And if you're 3 days out there in that severe risk in Texas or in the southeast, make sure that you have ways to get emergency supplies, you know your safe places, and you have a communication plan. Severe weather can escalate quickly today, so if you're in a place like Waco, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, make sure you have multiple ways to get weather alerts, know where your safe place is, and make sure that you know where to go if you don't have a basement available, so again, interior room away from windows. When it comes to tornadoes and road safety, if a tornado warning is issued, make sure you get off the road as quickly as you possibly can. You want to be in a sturdy shelter away from windows. That could be a gas station, something like that, but a well-built building, and do not shelter under an overpass. Let's take a look at the flash flooding threat now briefly. 2 of 4 slight risks in place today and tomorrow. However, we're not going to be seeing a slight risk on Friday, marginal risk of flash flooding there on Friday in the mid-Atlantic. As we get into the quantitative precipitation there, anywhere in the purple, that's where you could see more than an inch of precipitation there, with over 2 inches possible in places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Fort Worth, Mobile, Alabama. Flash flooding can escalate quickly, so if you're in any of the risk regions that we just went over, make sure that you have multiple ways to get weather alerts, and make sure you know where to go in a flash flood warning. That's going to be higher ground. And make sure that if you see floodwaters, you don't enter them on vehicle or on foot. It can take very little to sweep you away. Let's take a look now at the fire weather risks. Today, an elevated risk in place. That's for a few hours of potentially critical fire weather conditions that warrant that elevated area in Texas and New Mexico. We then have another elevated fire weather risk tomorrow in the state of New Mexico, where meteorological conditions look quite good for fires. However, moist fuels should prevent a huge risk. And then finally, we have critical fire weather conditions on Friday in Arizona and New Mexico, where fire weather conditions will be best in the afternoon hours. Make sure that you know what to do in the event of wildfires, and make sure that you know how to evacuate. Listen to local officials if needed. Make sure not to throw out cigarette butts or do things that could trigger fires, especially if in the critical region for fire weather. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. We hope the video was useful. It was a bit faster paced today. We're just trying out shortening the duration of these videos a bit. So let me know, did I go too fast? Was this good? Do you like this format better? Please let me know in the comments below. With that being said, again, if you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and join our Discord server if you'd like to talk to me and the rest of the team. Thank you so much for watching. We might see you later today if we need to go live.